over the weekend, there were 2 new Divergent books announced. And you guys know, usually when I travel, I love to film thematic videos on location that have something to do with the place I'm going. Divergent takes place in a post-apocalyptic Chicago. You guys are never gonna believe this. I'm in Chicago. She sensed in the atmosphere. She was like, Meredith Navako is in the perfect location to film an emergency video that's very thematic, that's on location. We've got to announce it this weekend. It's perfect timing. So we're just doing a real quick emergency video. I'm just gonna give you guys the update on exactly what's been announced, and then I'll give you some of my predictions about maybe what we're gonna see in the book. And then of course, you know, when the book comes out, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna do a whole video series on it, so make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that. Over the weekend at BookCon, Veronica Roth announced that there is going to be 2 new books in the Divergent series, but they're not gonna be canon in the same universe that the original trilogy and then the short story collection came out in. I'm gonna take a second to catch you guys up on some things from the original series that are relevant, and then we'll get to what the new duology is gonna be. So if you remember, the Divergent world takes place in a post-apocalyptic Chicago. The Bean does survive, but Lake Michigan actually doesn't, where the city is split into 5 factions. And each of the factions is based off of a personality trait that they prioritize above all else. So there's amity, which is kindness and peace, abnegation, which is selflessness, candor, which is honesty, erudite, which is knowledge, and hang on, I remember the last one. I've got this. Dauntless for bravery. And all the kids are raised in one of the factions, but the year you turn 16, you get the opportunity to choose a different faction, but that's the only opportunity you get to switch. And if you don't fit into your new faction or the faction that you stayed in, you end up factionless, and nobody wants that. Through the original trilogy, we follow our main character, Triss, who switches from abnegation to dauntless. Spoilers for that original trilogy. The first book is all about her joining Dauntless, but at the end, there's a reveal that Erudite has been planning an overthrow that involves mind controlling all the Dauntless people. But the mind control doesn't work on Triss because she's what's called Divergent, which means that she doesn't fit into any one of the factions. She could fit equally into multiple of them, and this is rare. The second book is mostly about this uprising and these wars between the factions. And then at the end of that book, we find out that there's a whole world outside of Chicago, and they go into that world and they find out that it was all a big experiment. They had come up with a way to genetically modify humans, and it takes a few generations for it to really set in, but people had signed up for this. And so over the generations, they would emphasize some of these really good traits, right? Like bravery, selflessness, all of that. But then they found that they didn't actually make people better. If you're too selfless, you're self-sacrificing, and that's not necessarily a good thing. If you're too brave, you're gonna be brash, right? And so if you emphasize some of these traits too much, then you're not a well-rounded person. That actually doesn't make a better person. And somehow this causes like an apocalyptic level war. I never really wrapped my brain around why that was in the original book series, but anyway, there was like a giant war and a bunch of violence happened. And so they decided to try and make these cities, these different experiments, to see if they could genetically modify people and slowly filter them back to be more well-rounded. And that's who the Divergents are. They're basically back to the normal human genetic code. And at the end, our main character, Triss, dies, which is a choice for sure. Not one that a ton of the fans are happy with. This new book series is actually going to be an alternate universe where Triss never switches to Dauntless at the beginning of the series. So it's unclear if that means that she stays in abnegation or if that means that she switches to one of the other factions. So I'm going to give you guys different predictions for each one, but that's what the duology is going to be. It's going to be an alternate universe where Triss doesn't go to Dauntless, and so the story plays out differently because of that. Well, in order to do our predictions, I think we have to talk about why would she do an alternate universe, right? She says that she's just interested in this idea. How differently would the story have played out? But it is kind of a dominant opinion amongst the fans that the ending of the original trilogy is super unsatisfying because of Triss's death. That it just kind of doesn't sit right because it is a dystopian romance series and she has this whole romance with this character Tobias, and so with them not ending up together in the end, it's just kind of a bummer. It's just kind of sad, you know? And not only that, but that third book is all over the place. I mean, I think she's taken another crack at this concept because she maybe wants to provide a more satisfying ending to the fans and also to make money, which I don't fault her for. So with that, What are my predictions? Well, the obvious thing for her to do is just keep Tris in abnegation. And I think because most of the people going into this book series are going to know the big reveal that the city is this big experiment, I think that in this duology, she's probably going to reveal that pretty early. And if you remember from the original trilogy, abnegation knew. It's different than the movies, so don't get on me if you're remembering the movies and not the books, but abnegation knew the secret, and they were the ones keeping it secret for a really long time. And so I wonder if when she chooses to stay in abnegation with her dad as like one of the council leaders, if he's not going to tell her once she's officially in abnegation for life, that so that she can write the story to still be interesting despite the fact that the reader already knows that big reveal, instead of saving it for the last book like she did for the original trilogy as a reveal. I do definitely think that no matter what she does, Tris is still going to end up with Tobias. And I think in this duology, she definitely is going to survive and the two of them are going to end up together, or else I can't even imagine how much the fans would riot if she did not do that. Can you imagine? She comes back, she writes an alternate universe, and she kills Tris off again? Actually, I kind of want her to do that. I changed my mind. I think that would be hilarious. But anyway, so that's what I think the premise of it will be if it takes place in abnegation, will be that Tris finds out pretty much right away what the big secret is. And then the erudite uprising will still happen where the Dauntless go and try and kill all the abnegation people. But Tris will be in abnegation this time instead of with Dauntless. And I think it's kind of during that uprising that she'll meet Tobias. And then that's what'll spark the romance between them. And then the rest of the duology will play out from there. But I thought I'd throw in some fun predictions of like, what if she goes to the other factions, right? So I think there's like a fun version of it where she switches to erudite with Caleb, her brother, when he does, to stick with him, or because she feels drawn to it, I don't know. And then finds out about the erudite uprising and the big secret and all of that from Janine instead of from her dad. So we also still find out pretty early in that that's the case. Because again, I just think it would be so boring if she tried to save that for a final reveal, because most of the people reading it are going to know that already. So then maybe she finds that out from Janine and she finds out about the uprising and she starts working against it from the inside at erudite, and then the series plays out from there. And maybe that's how she meets Tobias. So I think that would be the next most likely one if she didn't want to keep her in abnegation, if she wanted to go for a little bit of a surprise. But I think she could also send her to Amity and have the story start when everybody shows up to Amity after the uprising for Safe Haven. And maybe that's when she gets involved in the story. And so if she picks Amity, I think that will be the premise. And that only leaves Candor. I think Candor is the least likely for her to switch to at the beginning of this book series. And I was having trouble thinking of what even the premise would be if she did. So honestly, I don't really have a prediction for that one. But yeah, I do think the most likely thing for her to do is just to keep Tris in abnegation. And I think if she wants to throw a curveball, she'll have her choose erudite. But maybe she'll throw a crazy curveball and send her to Candor. I don't know. I guess we'll find out in October. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss it when I make a video on the new book when it comes out, because of course I'm going to. And let me know what your guys' predictions are in the description. Do you have any guesses? Do you have any ideas? But like I said, really short one today. Just wanted to update you guys on the news and show you the bean. I did tell the man in the bean already about the new duology, so he knows. All right, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.